समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
We've seen a bit of an overdose of geopolitics, I would have thought, geopolitics, and we've talked about the Supreme Court, etc. But I thought today I'll switch to domestic politics because lots of interesting things are happening in West Bengal with Congress parties march, with Congress parties ek taraf jodo, ek taraf chodo in Goa. All kinds of things are going on. So I thought we'll talk about that. But you know what? Geopolitically, the world has become very unstable with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And so on different fronts, conflicts break out. So completely unexpectedly, a new war has broken out, or a new mini war has erupted or re-erupted between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Remember, about 2 years back, there was massive fighting there over this enclave called Nagorno-Karabakh, which is officially recognized internationally to be a province, to be a part of Azerbaijan, but where majority of the people are of Armenian origin. So they were under Armenian control. Then there was a short, sharp war where the Azeris used Bayraktar drones and other Israeli drones. Bayraktar is Turkish, and Israeli drones, and showed us how drone warfare had changed the face of the modern battle, and they captured those areas and attained a very quick victory. That war was finally calmed down with the Russians getting involved and bringing about a ceasefire, and also setting 2,000 peacekeepers into Nagorno-Karabakh. But basically, Azerbaijan had won that war. Now, the same Azeris this Tuesday this week, again attacked Armenian positions. Obviously, anybody who attacks the other guy's position says, I was attacked first, or there was a provocation, but unlikely that Armenians, still licking their wounds and being a much weaker power, would do this, would provoke the Azeris. More likely, it is the Azeris which saw a window of opportunity. And why did they see that window of opportunity? Because they know that Armenia is pretty much an ally, or I would even say kind of a protectorate of Russia. In the last war, Russians had come in and brokered a ceasefire. Most of the equipment the Armenians use is Russian equipment. As Azeris, on the other hand, armed themselves with Turkish, Israeli, other equipment. They also got some help from Pakistan, and therein lies some other complexity. So it's the Azeris now who thought maybe abhi mauka hai. So you also take advantage of it. When the Russians are weak, when Armenia's patrons are weak, push the Armenians to get another better deal out of this. So that's how they started it. As we speak, the Russian foreign minister intervened, the Americans also intervened, but basically the Russian foreign minister claims that he's brought about yet another ceasefire. In this short, sharp battle, at least 150 people have died on both sides. Armenians say about 50 of theirs, Azeris say about 50 of theirs. So I suspect each side, by the time you count the wounded, etc., both sides have suffered about 300 casualties, fatal or not fatal. And this has been a very sharp, short engagement, and we don't know where it's headed. Now, first of all, understand Armenia. I will also give you a link to our episode where I had explained this whole Armenia, Azerbaijan, Nagorno-Karabakh situation. That's a situation with many complexities, and we will not go there because many of those in a way became irrelevant after the Azeris. In modern warfare, people don't use that terminology anymore, but for want of something more euphemistic, conquered most of Nagorno-Karabakh and settled that issue. So that issue is now over. That complexity I'm not going into. Important thing is, look at the geography. As I had said in episode, what you see between Azerbaijan and Armenia is a deadly cocktail or a witch's brew of what? Geography, politics, so geopolitics, geography, see where they are located on the map, geography, politics, religion and ethnicity, right? Geography and politics, you know that this is in the Caucasian region, sort of in the southern Caucasian region. Armenia is a country which is difficult to describe as Asian or European. Azerbaijan is a Eurasian country. It straddles both sides. Azerbaijan borders also Russia, the Russian Dagestan on one side, Georgia on the other. Georgia again is a state that's been under pressure from Russia, where Putin has been up to a lot of activity, if not mischief. In fact, that is where he took out those two Chota republics, South Ossetia and Abkhazia republics as he describes them. Then Azerbaijan also borders Iran. Azerbaijan and Armenia. Armenia lies in the middle. Armenia is a landlocked country. It's a landlocked country. Importantly, and that's where religion comes in, geographically it's landlocked. It's overwhelmed by Azerbaijan on one side, Iran on the other, Georgia, etc., and then Russia, but it is fully landlocked. Azerbaijan, on the other hand, is also landlocked except for the fact that it has the Caspian Sea. Now, Caspian Sea itself, if you want to describe it, how do you describe a sea as landlocked? I'd say it's a standalone sea. So it is a kind of landlocked sea. It is also not quite as saline as normal seawater. So I won't say it's a freshwater lake, but it's a very large water body. But at least Azerbaijan has access to that, and through that it has access to a lot of the trading posts, etc. in Iran. Armenia doesn't have any of that. So that is the geographical issue. But Armenia and Azerbaijan are both seen as gateways to Europe, because right now centrality of Eurasia is underlined to everybody. These two are straddling basically the gateway to Eurasia from either side to the other. Then you have Turkey there. Once again, that's a function of geography and politics. Turkey is a country which has always had some fish to fry in this situation. And Turkey thinks this is the area of its own influence, because you know what, once you've had an empire, that nostalgia never goes, particularly if you are still located where you had the empire. Now, the British may not have such a nostalgia about, say, India, because they are not located here. But the Ottomans were located right there. So they see all of this as their own sphere of influence. And they think that they have a role to play in anything that happens in the region. That's why you see them doing their own stuff in Syria, in Libya, in Ukraine. Look at what they are doing in Ukraine. They are arming the Ukrainians. They are selling them Bayraktar drones and more stuff. At the same time, they're talking to Putin. They are also mediating. They are also critical to Putin's navy and his reinforcements moving in from the Mediterranean fleet to Black Sea, because Turks control those two passages between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. And also at the same time, they've been critical, they've been central to this agreement to ship Ukraine's and Russia's surplus food grain out. And that has been a big relief for the rest of the world, including Africa. So nobody can today annoy the Turks. So Turks also have a fish to fry in this situation, because you know what? Turks don't particularly love Armenians for a very long time. And that's where, from geography and politics, from geopolitics, we move to ethnicity and religion. Again, try and understand this. Armenia is one tiny Christian country. I'm not going into the denomination of their Christianity, etc., because it's too intricate. And if I sat in that exam, I don't think I will get even 10 upon 100. So I'm not going there. So they have their own order of Christianity, but they are almost 100% Christian country. On their two biggest neighbors, in fact, their three biggest neighbors, are fully Islamic countries. So Azerbaijan is an Islamic country, Iran is an Islamic country, Turkey is an Islamic country. Under Erdogan now, Erdogan 2.0, Turkey is an Islamized country as well. It is not Kemal Atatürk's country, right? So in that sea of Islam, sits tiny Armenia. Tiny Armenia has a population of just about 3 million. Azerbaijan has a crore, and then we know that Iran and Turkey are very large Islamic countries, and yet there is a further complexity in religion. It isn't just Christian and Muslim. Azerbaijan is predominantly a Shia country. Azerbaijan has the second largest Shia population as a percentage of total population of about 85%. Iran is the highest, Azerbaijan is the second, then the other countries like Iraq, Bahrain, etc., they come afterwards. So Azerbaijan is the second largest percentage of Shia population in the world. Azerbaijan also is much more an active part of the Islamic system or the OIC system, and that's the reason you found a lot of sympathy and a lot of activism and a lot of involvement by the Pakistanis in the previous war as it broke out over Nagorno-Karabakh. So that is the religious issue. In ethnicity, Armenians are one ethnicity, Azeris are yet another, Turks are yet another, right? In the middle of this, Azeris are now minorities, a religious minority, a geographical minority, a weak country with a very small population, very talented people, a country with a history of excesses, massacres, genocides, and I will tell you a bit about that in a minute. And also, they are an ethnic minority. So anybody historically, and you can see over the past 150 years, anybody rises up to beat up the Armenians. That's why in large parts of the world, wherever immigrants are welcome, you will find Armenian immigrants. Even in India, Calcutta, for example, you will find an Armenian community because these are the people who came in during their previous massacres. In fact, if you want to see one of the most exploited and one of the most victimized ethnicities in the world in the past 150 years, it is the Armenians. How bad? I will tell you. Armenians have had so many genocides, beginning with, say, 1893-94, that the expression genocide, coined by Raphael Lemkin, he first investigated the massacres and killings in Armenia in early 20th century, and then he investigated what happened in Europe, particularly with Jews, Hitler and Jews. That's when he came up with he coined the word genocide. So genocide generally would mean intentionally when you work to finish the existence of any community. There's a lot of debate on this, but generally you would say when a large percentage of a population is killed in the process. So how many Armenians have been killed in their earlier massacres, which led to the definition of the word genocide? And I take this data from a New York Times article by John Kiffner, of which I'm sharing a link with you. This tells us that University of Minnesota Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies, it said that 1914, there were 21,33,190 Armenians counted to the last decimal point. That is 2.133 million Armenians were there. By the end of 1922, in 8 years, how many were left? 3,87,000 were left. That means nearly 17 lakh Armenians, which means more than 75% Armenians had been killed in these serial massacres, in this case mostly by the Turks. And thereby lies a tiny story as well. So the Turks, when they were coming to the Second World War and they saw that their empire, the Ottoman Empire, was losing power, a lot of the impatient young Turk officers, particularly military officers, they got together and they said, this is not working, let's modernize Turkey and let's also restore the Turkish glory. So it was in that process, in trying to restore the Turkish glory, that they made a big blunder of joining with the Germans in the First World War, and they attacked Baku in Azerbaijan. And they thought if they took it over, to an extent the empire or the Turkish glory will be restored. They were defeated roundly, quite badly, and as they were defeated, what happens when you get defeated? When you get defeated, you look for a scapegoat, somebody to beat upon. So they said the reason we got defeated was that the Christian Armenians sided with the Russians. Remember, First World War, Russians and the West were together, and Germany was on the other side, as usually was the case in the first half of the 20th century. So they then took reprisals on Armenians. So they killed a lot of them. In fact, there's a whole bunch of massacres have taken place against Armenians beginning 1894, 1895, 1896, 1909, and then 2014-15 when they were also uprooted, not just from where they are right now, but also from a region in Turkey called Eastern Anatolia. Please see it on the map where they used to live, which was dominated by Muslim Kurds in that area. They were uprooted and they were forced to march to re-inhabit Syria and Libya, to be resettled there, much in the way that Stalin moved a lot of large populations and Mao later moved a lot of populations. And maybe much before that, Muhammad bin Tughlaq moved the population of Delhi to the south. And a lot of people, as you know, happened in that case, died on the way. So in these marches also, lots and lots and lots of Armenians perished. So to sum up the point, Armenians are the most victimized ethnicity in the history of the 20th century and onwards. Now you might say, oh, what about the Jews? Remember, I'm saying ethnicity. I am not saying faith. They were victimized essentially because of their ethnicity, although faith was also there, because this region is very messed up and we have rarely ever looked at this region because it was out of sight, out of mind. It never bothered us, it never bothered anybody. And who wants to look back at what happened in early 20th century? It didn't bother us. But today you can see that this is a strange religion, and as I said earlier, it has this deadly brew or killer cocktail or witch's brew of geography, politics, religion and ethnicity. And you know what? See this region now. See what is playing out. The Turks and the Russians are in some ways at each other's throats in Libya and Syria. In both places by now, they figured out a way of giving each other space because they are after all fighting to the last Arab or last local in those areas. So Turkey and Russians are fighting and yet making compacts between themselves in faraway Syria and Libya. In Ukraine, Turkey is arming the Ukrainians but mediating with Putin. In Armenia, Azerbaijan, which is being armed by Turkey, Azerbaijan army would be nothing but for Turkey's support and also Israel's support. And what are the Israelis doing there? Arming a Shia Islamic country against a Christian country, tiny Christian country. And in the middle of all this, Russians are being made to look more and more defeated and stupid. Because you know what? The only reason the Azeris have done it is because they see a window of opportunity. And what have the Armenians done now? They have invoked Collective Security Treaty Organization, that is CSTO. Now CSTO is a treaty that republics of the former Soviet Union signed in this area for joint security. This is the treaty that Kazakhstan had invoked last year when they had civil disturbances, so they could get Russian troops to come and help them. Today, Kazakhstan and Russians also are having a very fraught relationship because Russia is seen to be weak. The big brother is weak, so everybody thinks the big giant is right now down. So this is the time to play your games. This is your window of opportunity. It just so happens in this case, the victim is again the weakest party in that entire geopolitical region, that being Armenia.